All right, so today we're going to be talking a little bit about some of the differences of the cities here in Southwest Florida. They all offer something just a little bit unique to their areas. Talk a little bit more about the pricing in those areas and some of the things going on. I will expand upon that further in future videos, but this is just a lightly touch on what's around us and maybe highlight it for you. Also, we're going to be talking about the market, rentals, what's going on with the latest fraud issues, some information about shootings and things like that. So you'll want to stick around to the end, make sure you get all this information, and we're getting after that next. Hey everybody, my name's Craig Cunha. I'm a real estate agent here in Southwest Florida. If you're looking for a channel to tell you everything about what it's like to live, play, eat, sleep, and buy real estate on the Gulf Coast, this is the channel for you. Go ahead and subscribe, hit the little bell to make sure you're notified every time, and go to ournextfloridahome.com or look for the app, Our Next Florida Home, and get your search started now. If you've got any questions, please do what everyone else does and call, text, or email, because I've got your back when moving to the Gulf Coast. Okay, so we're going to be talking again about each of the little cities, and I'm doing this because I had an opportunity this week to be in a couple of the different cities around the area, and it opened my eyes to some of the differences. And I'm just going to touch on this to highlight some of the things that might make you decide on an area over another one. But we'll go ahead and get a deeper dive into each of these cities as we move forward. In any case, I'm going to start with Northport. This is right up at the northwest end of Charlotte County, and it is probably one of the least developed areas. It's coming along. It's very close to Port Charlotte, so Port Charlotte we're going to touch on in a second. But what I noticed about Northport, and this is where Kyle and Jessica just closed in their home, so congratulations, guys. But they wanted this because they're from Colorado, so they like the extra vegetation. They like the smaller size. The other thing I noticed, many of their roads, even main roads, are one lane in each direction. So for somebody like me who's used to driving in 3 lanes in many cases and being able to zip in and out of traffic if I need to, that could be troublesome. You get behind somebody doing less than the speed limit and things aren't going to go well. So for me, that doesn't work. But if you like a smaller size, if you like more vegetation around you, if you want that wooded feel, the construction is going on up there, but it's at a lesser degree. You don't have as many of the conveniences, so you'll be driving to Port Charlotte to go to their mall if that's something that you're trying to achieve. Now, Port Charlotte, again, next city down, and it has a center city kind of an area where you're going to find the malls and the Best Buys and the restaurants and all this stuff. It's kind of right there at the intersection of 41 and El Jobin, and it's just their central area. But if you go down US 41 or up US 41, whichever one you want, that's where you're going to find everything all up and down the coast. And that's the case with Northport, Port Charlotte. We're going to be getting after the other ones, but every single one of them, US 41 cuts through it. So that's where you're going to see a lot of congregation of businesses, restaurants, and things like that. So if you're ever in doubt and you're not on I-75, get to US 41 because that's where you're going to find everything. Now, Port Charlotte, you might have heard last week that they have the Sunseeker Resort coming in. That's going to be the newest, biggest, and baddest thing going on in the area. So when that's finished next year in May, then we're going to have a whole nother set of things to talk about. As we keep moving south down US 41, you fall into Punta Gorda. Punta Gorda is a historic, used to be smaller town. Now, it still is smaller than, say, Cape Coral and Fort Myers, but it's growing. It's growing pretty fast. We've got a lot. I'm on one of the Facebook pages for Punta Gorda, and I get to see a lot of the complaints about the traffic, and they're talking about putting up a new apartment building in the downtown area, and there's a lot of people that are just kind of fighting that battle against it because their town is changing. Just like everywhere else across Florida, people want to be here. There's a certain lifestyle that they're looking for, and they're getting it when they come here. But Punta Gorda, wonderful little town. Fisherman's Village is an awesome place to go. Lashley Crab House is another one. Has a little marina. These things sit right on the river. It's a great way to spend your time there. That's what I do when I motorcycle up there or take the boat up there. It's all about the waterfront. But there's a lot of nice historic things in the town, a lot of little restaurants that you can stop in at, and they have, I think it's 3 different biking paths that are miles and miles long. One of them goes right along the river, so it's really cool to use. But that's what you can expect in Punta Gorda. Now we continue south. I'm going to start with North Fort Myers and then move over. But North Fort Myers is obviously an extension of Fort Myers. It's on the north side of the river. It's a little bit older. There are a number of shops and stores and things like that there that you can get. Prices are going to be a little bit lower there. The standard of living feels a little bit different than it does in many other areas, but that is just a piece of Fort Myers. Now you cross across the river on the only free bridge that's still there. There's no tolls for it. The US 41 bridge, it drops into downtown Fort Myers. Downtown Fort Myers, it's thriving at times. We're going to be talking about some of the things going on there that could be negatives, so stick around for those. But this is where you're going to find the music walks, the art walks. You're going to find, if they're going to be dropping the ball for New Year's, they've done it there before. There's a lot of things going on downtown because that's where the bars and restaurants are. So if you're looking for that kind of entertainment, downtown Fort Myers, we're going to find it. Also, you'll notice on US 41, all the businesses just, again, line this place. Now, Fort Myers is probably the most built up as far as commercial. It's a lot of communities. The other two we mentioned before, Port Charlotte and Northport, it's not a lot of communities. So there's still subdivisions for the most part. There will be some communities. Even Punta Gorda. Punta Gorda has this major subdivision, so it's not a community, but it's very well done subdivision. Punta Gorda Isles, very highly sought after, very popular. Anyway, dropping back down into Fort Myers, there are communities just spread all over the place. And I'm going to get a deep dive into that in the future because there are a lot of things to talk about where you could live if you go to Fort Myers. And Fort Myers also has the international airport. So there's a lot of draw to be in this area if you're somebody that likes the faster pace, the hustle bustle. There's a lot of traffic. We're not even in season and there's a lot of traffic. So this season's going to be interesting to see what happens with all this growth we've been experiencing. If we go to then the west, you've got Cape Coral. There's two bridges that go across. The Cape Coral Bridge and the Midpoint Bridge. These bridges both have a $2 toll. It's a one-way charge, so that helps. They used to do $1 each way, and it was a pain because you had to go through a toll booth. Now they just let you buzz by, use your Sun Pass, or they'll charge you according to your license plate. But when you drop into Cape Coral, there's something unique that you'll find here. First off, 3 lanes on the main roads, and you're zipping, you're zooming, you're going where you want to go. People are getting better at getting out of the way, but not all the time. The main road going north and south is Del Prado. This is where all of our businesses are. Businesses and the restaurants are. It runs north and south. You're going to find the hospital off of this as well, but you'll find all kinds of little shops up and down this place. This is where a lot of businesses conduct their business. And then the other one is Cape Coral Parkway. Again, it's lined with businesses up until a certain point. It stops right around Santa Barbara. Actually, it could even stop a little sooner up at Palm Tree. But this is where you're going to go for our downtown entertainment. There are some bars and restaurants down there. They're talking about expanding in it to include this cove on 47th. It's going to be about 600 parking spots in there. I think there's going to be 300 luxury apartments and some shops and restaurants. So this is another thing that a lot of people are kind of up in arms with because it's taking up just that little bit of extra space that we had down there in vacant land, and it's going to fill it in, and it's going to fill in the traffic. Because imagine 300 new apartments and 600 parking spots. They're accounting for 2 cars for each unit, or that's actually going to be for public parking as well. But that's a lot of extra cars in that one area. So again, growth is great, but it's also going to cause problems. Now, if we jump back over across the bridge and go south, you're in Bonita Springs. Bonita is, well, Estero and Bonita Springs are kind of one and the same. Estero is growing very fast, has the malls, has the shopping, has a lot of communities. And Bonita Springs being attached just to the south of it, it too has a lot of communities. And it's the closest you're going to get that feeling to Naples without being in Naples. Now, Naples is a whole nother animal. That one, the traffic is crazy there. I was there yesterday to golf at Tiburon. There's nothing like golfing at a golf course that you went to a PGA tournament at the previous year or whenever. So you see the pros play there, and then you get to play there. It was kind of surreal. I thought it was really cool. Awesome golf course. I was a little slow because they shut down the black course. We had to play the gold. But when they have both running, they can time it out really well to keep you flowing. But it's just a really super nice course. If you ever get a chance to play it, go to Tiburon. And in Naples, that's one of the things they have a ton of. Golf courses. There's just a lot of it. There's a ton of communities too. They have their whole downtown section where you can see the shops and the restaurants. And the beaches, obviously they've got their pier down there. There is Wiggins Pass down that way as well, so you do have some beach opportunities. And all up and down the coast. Let me touch on the beaches real quick. The beaches are very different up and down the coast. We already mentioned Naples. If you come up into the southern end of Fort Myers Beach, there's very few restaurants. There's one, I think it's called Docks on the beach. Anyway, there's a couple down there, but there's really nothing as far as entertainment on the south end of Fort Myers Beach. But once you cross over the San Carlos Pass and get up into the northern section, this is where all the beachfront stuff is. And you get up to town center, this is where all the restaurants, the live music, the bars. This is one of the most active areas on the West Coast for a beach town entertainment area. Because if you keep going north, Punta Gorda, no beach. Port Charlotte, no beach. Northport, no beach. They all have golf access properties, but there's no beach. You have to go over to Venice and Englewood and hit those beaches. So it's one of those things that if you need a beach. Most of these places you're going to get to a beach within 30 to 45 minutes anyway, so it's not terrible, but put that on your priority list when you're figuring out where you want to be. Like I said, we're going to revisit all this stuff in the future and get a deeper dive into this, but this is kind of what you can expect in each of these areas if you're considering moving here. Now, let's talk about pricing real quick. Charlotte County, which is where Northport, Port Charlotte, and Punta Gorda is, those prices up there, the median is still in the 300s for all single-family types of homes. We're not talking about condos. This is just single-family. Then you drop into Lee County, and you're going to go up into the 400s. And finally down into Collier, where Naples is, that is going to be 600,000 and 700,000 is the median. Yeah, things jump up quite a bit in Naples. So head south. It's worth more money. You're going to spend more money. There's one other place I forgot to mention, and it's probably easy for a lot of people to forget this one, but Lehigh Acres. It's the furthest east. It's the furthest from everything, and it gets a bad rap sometimes. I did live out in Lehigh Acres at one point. It was brief, just a couple years when I first moved over here. Then I moved across for business purposes to Cape Coral, and that's now where I reside. Out in Lehigh Acres, it's going to be very much like a mix between a Port Charlotte and a Northport. It's still developing, but it's got a lot of stuff out there. It has its own Walmart. Hey, it's got that going for it, right? But it doesn't have a lot of things like the Home Depots and the Lowe's. You still have to come into Fort Myers for that. It doesn't have any big box stuff like Sam's Club or Costco. So those, again, you have to come into Fort Myers. Believe it or not, there are some of the big box stuff up in the smaller towns like Port Charlotte. But if you really need stuff like that, Fort Myers is where you're going to go. That's where everything truly is. Part of my process, as you know, if you've been watching for any amount of time, is for you to come out here. You'll have a list of homes that we pulled off the MLS. You're going to drive to these different neighborhoods. If you've never been to Florida, you need to drive around a little bit, figure it out, feel it. I mentioned how Kyle and Jessica just closed on a home. That's what they did. They drove the areas, and they said to me, Craig, we don't like this area, or this area, but we love this area. So that broke it all down. They spent the time. They put the time in, the sweat equity to figure out where they want to be. Me driving you around isn't going to help you do that because I'm going to take you in and out as fast as possible because there's a schedule to adhere to. When you can just flow around and do it yourself, you're going to get a whole new sense of freedom. And then at that point, once you decide that neighborhood, we'll get into the houses. We'll show you something that you absolutely can't keep yourself from buying. But you've got to find the neighborhood because I can't duplicate neighborhoods. That's the number one step. You have to do that part of it. And if that's what you're willing to do, then we'll get right at it. Now, Redfin is saying that there's a lot of people backing out of contracts, and I haven't really seen it yet. I pulled up another report the other day that said people are backing out of contracts. I want to say something like 16% or something like that. In any case, I haven't seen it happen yet. It hasn't happened to any of my clients, and I think a lot of it depends on when you bought, too, because the new construction I have going on right now, some of these have been in the construction process for a year or more. So when they purchased these homes, the prices were significantly different. You can't back out of them because you'll never see the price again. So you have to look at both sides of the story. And you have to look at also, remember how we talk about national news all the time versus localized news? Here locally, housing is still sought after. We have a ton of construction going on. You could drive anywhere in the area and see construction going on. So it's still highly sought after. The new stuff is still the number one priority. It's the one thing that people want more than anything. I just had a conversation with a client yesterday, and it was the same thing. I want new construction. Can you help me get new construction? And that's the direction that we're going to try to go to. That was Mike. Mike, thank you for the call. We'll get you set up with new construction because I know that's what you really want. Anyway, with this backing out of contracts, it's not really something that's happening here a whole lot. It could be because of the lifestyle thing. People really just want to be here and they're willing to stick in what they're in. Rates have gone up a little bit, but it's, again, rates are rates are rates. They're going to adjust constantly. If it adjusts back down, refinance. You'll figure it out. But they're still not terrible rates. I think we're hanging somewhere in the 6s right now as a worst case scenario. And again, it's more than 3, sure, but it's still not terrible compared to where we used to be. Now, the reason for these people backing out of contracts, it's said that it's because they either can't afford it anymore because of these rates, or, believe it or not, some people think, hey, I can get a better deal. So they're backing out to repurchase something else and get a better deal. Does it make sense? I don't know. Is it going to work out for them? I don't know that either. Don't have the crystal ball, but that's kind of what the thought process is. I had another issue come up with a builder the other day. And if you're somebody considering going to a builder and working with a builder, get representation on your side. And I'm going to tell you why. This has nothing to do with commissions or any of that other stuff. This has to do with when you have a problem, you need somebody that has a relationship with these builders. And here's what happened. The other day, I got a call from Maricela and Hector. They closed on their home and they're trying to get things fixed that were on the final walkthrough list. In this process, they found that the back slider doors didn't even lock. So here they closed on their home, they're planning on staying in it, and they can't even lock the house up securely. They're calling the superintendent because he's supposed to rekey the house. They can't get him on the phone. I can't get him on the phone. But you know what I did do? I called the customer service manager and the assistant because I had their numbers from previous interactions. And when I contacted them, they said, hey, get me her number. We'll get in touch with her. We'll get somebody out there to take care of it. Now, if you didn't have representation, what would happen? You can't get the superintendent on the phone. So you're going to stay in the house that night and not lock your doors? Come on. It doesn't cost you anything to use representation. Get an agent that'll work on your side. The salespeople that are sitting in those offices for the builders are not on your side. They're on the builder's side. That's who pays them. Get yourself that representation so that you can get help in the event something like this happens to you. Now, fraud is getting to be something that's really real, and it happened to me. Okay? I've got to tell the story real quick, and then I'll tell you what the title company told me about it. Fraud is very specific to vacant lots. And the reason behind it is it's harder to get things all in line when there's a house and possibly somebody living in it and trying to work all the pieces and parts. But what they're doing now is it's usually a solo person on a property. That way you're not having to communicate with 2 different people. And they use a Gmail account, a Yahoo account, a Hotmail account, something like that. It's not an actual website to a business that they're using. They're also overseas. They're not here, so you're never getting them on the phone. And when you go, they literally, I'm getting up on a dozen now requests for people to list their lots with me. They say, get me a CMA and send the listing agreement and let's go. Okay, after looking into this a little bit more, every one of those scenarios is exactly like I just described it. And one of them, we actually did take the listing, had it under contract, and when the title company got a hold of it, they looked at the IDs, they looked at the font on it, they looked at the coloration, they looked at a DocuSign signature on it, just some strange things, and they said, no, this is fraud, get rid of it, dump it, make it go away. So that's what I had to do. And this is what's going on with vacant lots, so be very careful if you're approaching somebody, especially if you're trying to do this for sale by owner. If you're going into something and trying to purchase lots, it works on that side too. The title company told me that they've seen numerous cases of this just in the course of a week. This is every week they're seeing these fraudulent cases happening. So if you're trying to purchase land, especially if it's Gulf access, because that's really attractive, right? You're going to end up getting stuck. Get an agent again to help you out with this, because we do have business partners that'll help us handle this very important transaction. Now here in Lee County, there's about $135 million in a reserve account, and they want to take some of that money to lower our taxes, believe it or not. Yes, I said lower our taxes. $3.76 per $1,000 value on your property. They figure for the entire Lee County area that'll drop the reserves down to about $85 million. So they definitely still have money left over, but they want to do this because of everything that's going on with the economy. They want to kind of help stimulate things, keep people in their houses, and give them a little bit more of their resources to be able to live well when they're here in Florida. So if you're considering a purchase in our area, again, this is just in the talks. You can possibly get this benefit if it's something that's approved. But once again, we're trying to make every effort to make this area more livable for everyone. Just when you think you get a break, now insurance companies are dropping people that have solar panels. Now there's an investigation as to going on why they're doing this. They can't really figure out. It's not really accurate and concise as to what the reasons are, but they're looking at right now dropping anybody that has solar panels on their roofs, and you may not be able to get insured if you put solar panels on the roof. So keep an eye out for this. I'll update you as I hear more. Like I said, they're just in the investigative part right now to find out what's going on, and then we'll see how that's going to affect you and your insurance going forward. Here's something absolutely crazy. I couldn't believe when I saw it. Somebody actually took their RV and they're renting it out for $1,500 a month in Punta Gorda. Yeah, Punta Gorda is one of the lowest priced places for rentals as it is. And now they're pushing an RV at $1,500 a month. If it's something that works for you, great. I just can't see why this is the case. And it shows kind of what we're dealing with down here as far as the desperation regarding rentals. Now, what's even more interesting with the shortage of rentals is that Fort Myers had a surplus of vacancies at 21.2%. That was in the second quarter of this year. So we're amid all these problems with finding rentals, and we have this super high vacancy rate for rentals. You'd say, well, why is that? There's one of two reasons for it. Either their price is too high and people just aren't willing to pay it, or they're seasonal rentals. They just want people in there for the season. They don't want an annual rental. So if this report is going after annual rentals to look at vacancy rates, they're going to see it because that's a big part of what we have here in this area. There's a lot of vacation homes, a lot of VRBO, a lot of Airbnb, and they're going to be classified as vacant if there's nobody in it at the time. Now I'm going to go real quickly over, there's a difference between condo fees and HOA fees. The problem is that we have these different categories in our MLS, and we have a lot of agents that are newer. And the other problem is that we put it in our own listings. So whatever we put in, you're seeing wherever we classify it. There's some people even double that number. So let's just say the HOA is the one fee they have. They don't have a condo fee. I've seen it before where they take that same HOA fee, let's call it $300, and they put it in both HOA and condo fee because they don't know whether it's supposed to be in one or both or whatever. So it makes the number look higher than it's supposed to be. That's not the way it's supposed to go. In most cases, an HOA fee is there to talk about the common fees for the entire community. There's a great example, Sandoval. It's one of the communities here in Cape Coral. The HOA in the community as a whole is for the security, the clubhouse, the common ground maintenance, and all those pieces and parts. Because of most of it is single family homes in there. Then over in the condo section, they have a separate condo fee because their building has separate fees. It has its own insurances. It has its own maintenance. It needs its own reserves for its roof. So they'll have two charges, both the HOA and the condo fee, whereas all the single families and villas in the other section will simply have an HOA fee. That they're supposed to be broken apart, not crammed together. And if you have any more questions about that, I'd be happy to discuss it with you, but it can get confusing because these listings, again, they're done by individual agents and they could be done incorrectly. So check twice with your agent to verify those fees. The other thing that we can do to verify the fees is if you have a good agent that's willing to take the time, we'll call the management company and verify the fees. That way there is no question. When you're considering a neighborhood, one thing that you have to consider is the school pickup and drop off lines. There's 2 times a day. It's going to be a pain in your backside, and it's going to be in the morning hours somewhere between that 7 and 9 o'clock. And in the afternoon between 2:30, maybe 2 o'clock, and 5, because there's even intramural things going on at these schools where parents have to come pick up after the fact. Anyway, these school lines, you're going to get backed up. You're going to get frustrated. There's super slow zones, obviously. But if you're going to buy in a neighborhood that has a school, be sure that you have multiple ways in and out of the area. I have a couple ways in and out of my neighborhood, but lo and behold, the church up the road now, because of its pre-K program, starts to have lines snaking out of its parking lot too. So is there going to be a good way for me to get out and around? I don't know. But keep that in mind when you're driving to these different neighborhoods to check out what you want in a neighborhood. The timelines that these are going to happen are also for the school year. It kind of goes from August, beginning of August, until the beginning to middle of June. You do get that break between June and August, but as you can tell, that's a pretty short break. Now, downtown Fort Myers is starting to take steps towards being a little bit more secure downtown. There's people down there that now, even businesses that don't want to be open after 10 o'clock. There's been some violence down there, some fights. There was even a shooting last weekend. Now, they found the person that did it. It was completely random thing, but the point is that they know that safety down there is going to be the key reason why Fort Myers, downtown Fort Myers, keeps drawing people there. So the board, the city board is talking about ways to combat this, and the police presence has been increased recently because of this, but it's going to be an ongoing conversation to get more of that police presence down there so that you can be safe when you're out and about in downtown Fort Myers. Another thing that's very unique to Florida is we have an actual gator hunting season. There's up to 15,000 applications to do this, and there's only 7,000 of them given out. You get 7,000 permits issued. There's a couple different categories for these gators, and it's kind of odd the way they do it, but there's one that's statewide, and you can get up to 2 gators during the season. You can help other people hunt, but you can only get 2 yourself. I've seen the reports on these. They keep all the data on them as far as the sex of the gator and the size of the gator, where they were captured. But there is a statewide version, there is a private land version, and then there is a nuisance gator division, I guess you could call it. But there's 3 different categories that they fall into. This hunt is a 24-hour hunt per day. So all day long, all night long, you can be hunting. And it runs from August 15th to November 1st. So during this time, again, they're getting these gators, and you're probably saying to yourself, well, what do they use the gators for? What, like when they get them, what do they do? Well, they use the hide for boots and belts and all that stuff that we joke about. They also keep the heads and the feet as novelty gifts in these shops. That's where they come from. And the meat, it's pretty highly sought after, believe it or not. A lot of people want to try gator. There's gator bites in many of our restaurants here locally. Gator tail, whatever it is. But that's where all this stuff goes. And there's a ton of people, again, 15,000 applications for this that want to do this. There's 2 different charges. If you are here in Florida, it's $272. If you're a non-Florida resident, you're charged over $1,000 for that permit. So if it's something you want to take part in, you can check it out on the Florida Wildlife Commission website. You'll get the information about the hunt. This year, it's too late now because all the permits have already been done. They do it as a lottery system as well, so your names are drawn. There's no other way around it. It's not first come, first serve. Names go in, they do a drawing. If you get it, you get it. If not, better luck next year. All right, so that's a little bit more about living in Florida, some of the different areas that we covered. And again, we're going to expand upon that moving forward to give you more details about each of these cities to see if there's one that stands out for you. And if you've got any other questions about living in Florida, check out one of these other videos. But if you've got a specific question you need an answer to, you've got to call, text, or email, because I've got your back when moving to the Gulf Coast.